All right, let's jump right into this explainer and pull back the curtain on the intense, really high-stakes world of VIP and corporate executive security. We constantly see bodyguards in movies, but the actual framework protecting at-risk personnel is a highly structured, meticulously planned architecture. It's not just about putting a massive guy in a suit next to a CEO. It is all about risk mitigation, corporate continuity, and incredibly specific tactical planning.
Here is our agenda for today. We're going to cover 1. The executive threat landscape, 2. The cost of captivity, 3. The protection blueprint, 4. Defining proximate security, and finally, 5. The PSO profile. Let's get started.
Section 1. The executive threat landscape and its executive risk factors.
To really understand executive protection, we've got to strip away our everyday assumptions. You might assume that a high-end security team is mostly there to manage a VIP's chronic health problems or, standard medical conditions. But you'd actually be entirely wrong. When building a key executive protection plan, medical conditions are not the primary risk factors. The real dangers? They're external, completely unpredictable, and often deliberately targeted right at the executive.
So what are the real executive threats? We're talking about conspiracies and random acts of violence, severe accidents, stalking and workplace violence, child abduction, and identity theft. What's absolutely crucial to grasp here is that these are active, malicious threats. They demand a highly specialized, tactical response to deliberate actions, not just passive medical management. It is a completely different ballgame.
This brings us to what actually triggers a management protection plan in the first place. Because let's be real, you don't get executive protection just because you work in a pleasant, friendly industry. The triggers are highly specific. It's usually the sheer public prominence of the executive or the corporation itself. It's triggered by documented threats, abusive letters, or extortion attempts, and of course, high-risk local conditions and specific geographical events. If you're heading into a controversial event or a volatile region, that threat level spikes instantly, and a structured defense becomes mandatory.
Section 2. The cost of captivity and the resulting corporate fallout.
Why do companies pour millions into preventing these threats? Because the corporate fallout of a captive executive is devastating. If an irreplaceable asset to the company is taken by criminals, the entire organization goes into shock. You're looking at semi-paralysis at the decision-making level. That freeze alone can lead to millions of dollars in potential operational losses. On top of that, you have massive demotivation and discouragement among senior employees. The psychological hit totally cripples productivity across the board. And we really need to bust a massive misconception here regarding publicly traded companies. There is this dangerous myth that the exchange board will magically swoop in and halt the trading of the company's shares to save your stock price during a crisis. Let me be clear, that simply isn't true. The exchange board will not do that. Your company's share price could just spiral downward completely unchecked. The financial bleeding is entirely at the mercy of the market, which is exactly why preventing these incidents is an absolute corporate imperative.
Section 3. The protection blueprint and building the KPP plan.
So, how do we actually build the organizational solution? You build a key personnel protection, or KPP plan, and it's highly methodical. Step 1. You establish a clear rationale, mandate, and scope of coverage, who owns it and who is covered. Step 2. You designate the exact command and control location and the equipment needed. Step 3. You identify the precise plan executioners, plus your first and secondary responders. Everything has to be mapped out perfectly.
But watch out, because there is a literal, fatal flaw you can hit here. A protection plan is completely useless if you establish a command and control center without outlining exactly who will be in charge. Seriously, you can have all the high-tech equipment in the world, but if that chain of command isn't crystal clear before a threat happens, the entire KPP plan will just collapse under pressure.
Section 4. Defining proximate security and its on-the-ground execution.
Now we move from macro strategy to micro, boots-on-the-ground execution. What is proximate security? By definition, it's security provided all the time and in all places to protected personnel while remaining in close proximity to ensure no bodily harm takes place. It is not random. It's the exact opposite of approximate security. It means specific numbers of personnel performing specific tasks from close quarters, showing a real return on investment, whether you're on foot, in a car, on a train, or in the air.
So what does a personal security officer, or PSO, actually do on a daily basis? Their real duties are incredibly intense. They prevent physical and armed attacks. They protect against verbal abuse and bomb threats. They have to constantly chalk out contingency and evacuation measures. They ensure vehicle safety and handle defensive driving.
And yes, while they aren't there just to manage a chronic illness, they absolutely must step in to provide medical help during acute emergencies. They are constantly evaluating the environment and keeping seniors informed.
But it's just as vital to understand what PSOs explicitly do not do. Their mandate is laser-focused. They do not handle domestic disturbances. That is completely outside their scope. And a real PSO will never, ever deliberately take a VIP into a dangerous area or situation. Their whole operating philosophy is risk avoidance, not seeking out thrills. Section 5. The PSO Profile. Who exactly protects the VIP?
We all have that Hollywood myth in our heads, right? The dandy-dressing James Bond type hired to drive fast cars and fly helicopters. But the PSO reality is the exact opposite. A real security officer relies on an unobtrusive demeanor, a strictly low profile, and honestly, an average personality. The whole goal is to blend in seamlessly. Invisibility is their ultimate defense, right up until the exact second they're needed.
So instead of doing cinematic stunts, what do they actually rely on? Required PSO competencies include rich, real-world experience, a highly secure attitude while remaining ever vigilant. They must be capable to lead an evacuation, but also completely capable to follow strict command center protocols. Wrap all that up with effective communication skills and good physical fitness, and you've got a true professional ready for the worst corporate crises imaginable. Now that you know the severe realities of executive threats and the strict, hidden architecture of proximate security, you really have to ask yourself, is your organization protected by a structured KPP plan, or are you just relying on Hollywood myths? How vulnerable is your command and control right this very minute? Are you hoping the stock market will just pause to save you? Or do you have an unobtrusive, highly experienced team ready to execute? The truth is, the architecture of protection stays completely hidden, right up until the moment it's the only thing saving your company. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. It's been a fascinating deep dive. I'll see you next time.